This evening's webinar. I'm Alistair Bridge, ABDO's Chief Executive, and I'm joined this evening by Kevin Gutzel and Brenda Rennie, two of the current members of our board. So welcome to everybody. Could I just first of all ask you to mute your microphones, and also can I suggest that you turn off your cameras and then select speaker view so that you're going to be seeing the person who's speaking at any given time. So that's a bit of housekeeping to begin with. Now, the reason for the webinar this evening is that we're going to be holding elections shortly. We have 5 vacancies coming up on the ABDO board. And what we're hoping to do tonight is to explain a bit about what the ABDO board does. So what's the role of the board? And also give you a sense of what's involved in being a board member. And I think having heard from Kevin and Brenda about their experience of being on the board, I'm really hoping that will inspire you to put yourself forward for nomination. And there are going to be 5 vacancies this time around. So that does mean that there's a higher than normal chance of actually being successful in the elections. So that's just a recap on why we're all here tonight. We are recording the event this evening. That's so that anyone who's not able to join the webinar can watch it later. So just be aware of that. I'm going to be putting some questions to Brenda and Kevin, but then there will also be a chance for you to ask questions as well. And the way we're planning to do that is to invite you to post questions in the chat, and then we'll leave time at the end to run through those. So yeah, please feel free to ask anything that might be on your mind. So yeah, I'll turn now to our panelists, so Kevin and Brenda. So could I just ask you to introduce yourselves before we move on to the questions? Thank you.
Okay, shall I go first, Brenda? So yeah, good evening, everyone. It's Kevin Gutzel. Been on ABDO board now, on and sometimes off since 2009, so a long time. Will soon become the new president, which I'm really excited about, and not just that, but excited to welcome an almost new board come September time. So that's good. That's exciting. As far as my kind of day job goes, I own a company that supplies optical products into the UK, both opticians and labs. I'm also involved, and some of this has come after being on the board, some of it previous too. I'm an ABDO college tutor, have been for many years. Sit on various committees, including education and visitor panel for GOC. I'm the ABDO rep for BSI as well, and previously was an OSA, or FMO as it was, director. So that's enough about me for now, I think. So over to Brenda.
Hello, my name is Brenda Rennie. I originally started on the board in 2018. This is my 2nd time going for the board. I enjoyed being on the board, and I was a regional lead for Scotland, the first one. I'm a representative for ABDO on Optometry Scotland Executive and Council committees, and I'm also an ABDO practical examiner. I also help with ABDO for CPD online and with NEST in Scotland.
Right, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Kevin. So that hopefully gives you a sense of the experience that Kevin and Brenda have. We'll move on to the first question, which I'm going to put to Kevin, and that's really just to ask you to just start by explaining a bit about what the ABDO board does, really. So could you give us your take on that, please?
But you're on mute, Kevin.
Okay, we're there. Thank you. Yeah. So what is the role of the ABDO board? It changes. There's some things that don't change, and the most important thing is really to represent and support all members, all ABDO members out there. That's the number one priority. Any actions, any strategies we approve is always with that at our core. In terms of that, we along with the CEO and senior members of staff, we are kept in close contact regarding future and current strategy and direction. That is a common theme. The other thing, as I mentioned there, is also looking at the work of the executive team for ABDO. So often we have members of the team joining us for parts of board meetings to give us a flavour and a full and more detailed indication of what they are doing, as well as their future plans. To those ends, I don't want to frighten anybody here in regard to sort of financial perspectives, and certainly Alistair, since he joined as CEO now 18 months ago, has allowed, and I think it's quite right, for all board members to go through a process of training where really important. So for us, currently was for the financial aspects, which are hugely important. They are, if you like, the glue that holds the board and the association together. It cannot succeed or even exist without having proper governance and standards of finance. So finance training for anyone, and most people that have never looked into that depth of finance was deemed to be important, and that certainly occurred under Alistair's jurisdiction.
Okay, great, Kevin. So to sum up what you were saying then, I suppose the first thing was setting the strategic direction for the organisation. So we do now have a strategic plan which gives us that clarity about our priorities for the next 5 years, and that would be something that, you know, the board approved but also contributed to as it was being developed. So there's that sort of setting the strategy, but then also overseeing the work of the executive, as you said, including the financial performance of the organisation. So thank you for that. And maybe you could go on just to talk about, you know, you mentioned being on the board for, you know, quite a period of time. What have you found really rewarding about your role as a board member?
I think when I go back to thinking why I first joined, and it very much was thinking about, can I contribute? Can I be effective as a board member? Can I speak in a way that doesn't rarely disapproves, but often can be in such a way to change people's minds if I don't feel it's right. But not just that, is that, you know, as a board, you appreciate that views change over time. Even within meetings, you can change your view slightly on things, and that's the board's work. But I think in terms, for me, it was, you know, contributing to the future. We sit here, and certainly the board sits here as the current members of the board, but often that priority in our mind is the future of the organisation, the future of the member, the dispensing optician out there, and that's a huge responsibility in many ways. But and also the other aspect of it is really being able to take messages in years gone by from area meetings to the board, but more importantly to ensure that you're constantly in touch with other members there. So easy these days because we know social media tends to rule the lives of many, but to understand the situation they're in. Is it something that everybody else is experiencing? Is it something that the board can then take a view on and then have an answer to, or at least assist in supporting certain members too? And that was really my main force to begin with, and continues on to this day.
Yes, and you mentioned giving voice to the views of members, and that there's a link there to the strategy, because we've really emphasised there that everything we do should be delivering benefits for our members. That's got to be our reason for existing. So yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
I'll turn to Brenda now. So could you give us your thoughts on what led you to stand for election to the board? You're just muted at the moment, Brenda.
I was inspired by other previous presidents. They did a lot of new things for dispensing opticians. They were promoting their careers, advancing it, making us think out the box, that things could be achievable. And that was one of my aspects for why I wanted to become involved. Like Kevin, I was always involved with the local committees in ABDO, and we used to sit in the board meetings, and they were really informative. So it gave you a little insight to what being on the board was all about. And my main desire really is to support members and to try and progress and make ourselves more visible within primary and secondary care. And for that, it's good to have a voice and be involved and be involved in these changes.
Yeah, so have a chance to shape the future for the benefit of dispensing opticians.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Okay, and what advice would you give now to someone who's interested in standing for election, maybe sitting on the fence at the moment? You know, what would you say to them?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Totally go for it. Yeah, it's people. When I first put my name forward for the board, I thought, I don't know if I would be able to fit in. I don't own a business. I've always been employed. I've never had my own business, and it's far from the truth. You go there, everybody's diverse, everybody's welcoming. What if you don't know something, somebody else does? And it's quite good to get different views from different people's thoughts, and it just makes it work. It's quite exciting. It can be challenging, but it's very, very worthwhile, I think.
Right, okay. And I mean, Kevin mentioned that as well, actually, just hearing the thoughts of other board members and perhaps those thoughts causing you to rethink your views and learning from other people. I think that's a really interesting take on it.
I just feel you've nothing to lose and everything to gain by being part of the board. Be part of shaping your own future.
Right, okay. Excellent. And then, having been on the board yourself for a period of time now, do you have a sense of how you think it could help members in their careers more generally?
I think it shows employers that you're willing to go the extra mile. I think it shows the dedication to the profession that you chose to be in. And I think it was good standing on your CV for all that. And it could provide a higher managerial position. And you've got ABDO there to support you all the way forward with that.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that those are all really good reasons for getting involved. And Kevin's already mentioned the fact that he's, since joining the board, joined other boards as well. So I suppose getting that governance experience, that experience as a non-executive director could prepare you to take on other similar roles. So yeah, lots of reasons to get involved. Yeah, so I mean, perhaps go back to you, Kevin. And ask you about your motivation. If you can think back that far, what led you to put yourself forward?
Do you know, it's a really strange thing in life, isn't it? Sometimes somebody just says something to you and think, do you know, you're right, maybe I could. It came at a time where I was spending much more time on the road, often at ABDO meetings, talking about completely different things. And you kind of thought, could you influence? Because first of all, you obviously want to get some people saying, we think you could, as well as yourself saying, I think I could. Prejudge no one, prejudge no situation, because until you're there, you just don't know what you might bring to the table. The board always has and always needs a real eclectic mix of peoples, and I mean ages, and I mean experiences, and I don't mean everyone has to be experienced, because the very inexperienced person brings a different passion and a different view on their current experience, which maybe the more experienced one just doesn't see anymore. So I think that there's for me, there's highlights of bringing younger DOs on the board, or should I say even more mature DOs, new to the industry and the sector, bringing again a different influence from their primary career, if you like. So I think there's so much to be, there's so much. I don't think there's anybody who would be here, or I could think of, that I would say they would offer nothing to an ABDO board. And that really, I think, says a lot about the way in which DOs are. They have huge experience of patient contact, of clinical expertise, working with clinicians, but more so than that is actually spending so much more time with patients than anybody else in the practice. And I think that really does bring, for me, a huge experience that you can utilize, because at the end of the day, for the association, the members are at the core. For the members, the patients are at the core of their business.
Excellent. So you've really emphasized there the value of having different perspectives on the board. And
Absolutely.
as you quite rightly say, it might be hard for the more experienced board members to remember what it's like to be newly qualified, and the particular challenges that go with that. So so I think that's a really important point to emphasize. And you talked at the start when you introduced yourself about running your own business and the other roles you have. So I mean, could you give us a sense of how easy you found it to combine being on the board with all those other things that you do, let alone having a home life?
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I think that there are a lot of our members, quite rightly, who are very much 9 to 5, and often because of the way our business is, sector is, there's some people that join it because it's not even 9 to 5, and I mean that in a positive way, not a negative way. But for me, when my heart's in something, and I literally found this career by chance. And I had an opportunity very, very early on to move away from this career, but I didn't. Things happen for a reason, and I think there comes a time where you just feel that working in practice is one thing. Then what other doors are there that you would like to just push open or lean on to see if they will open up for you? It's great to have people to invite you through those doors. Sometimes you just need to push on them slightly and realize that practice leads to other things, and that's what I found all my life. I've virtually done my years in my career in like 10 years stints. So first 10 years practice, and then 15 years of very much sales and professional services, and now the last really for me, as well as being on ABDO board, is working sort of behind the scenes. And fortunately for me, I get to talk to more DOs and OOs than many people here, and that's my benefit. The downside, I don't get to talk to patients anymore, but believe me, I learn a lot about them. But no, it's we're all different, and we all bring different things, and I'm just excited. I really am excited by having new faces, new voices, new experiences on the board.
Excellent, thank you, Kevin. So I'll go back to Brenda now, and I suppose people might be listening to this and thinking, well, that all sounds great, but what does it mean in practice? How much time is involved? What's the real commitment? So, I mean, perhaps you could give us a sense of that, really. What does it involve, day to day? What's the commitment, really?
The commitment is that you attend 6 meetings a year, approximately, that you have to do. You need a good employer, if you are employed, that will support you to attend the meetings. It's a vocational role. You don't get paid for it, but your expenses are all covered. I feel that commitment-wise, as Alistair said, because you can do some things in the evenings, it suits or at different times when it suits within your days, it's quite good. But I managed to work it all quite well. I still work in practice. I enjoy working in practice, and it's a good balance to do be on the board. I also help out I'm on the exec and council for Optometry Scotland, and I can still fit that in too, which is because it's in the evening, it suits me better, it suits my work style, and a lot of people that would suit better than trying to cram everything in at 9 till 5.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest commitment, I think, is reading the papers about a week before we have a board meeting. If you want to read them really clearly and make sure you understand them, it takes time to absorb it all. That's the biggest commitment, because the rest of it is just time to enjoy and chat to people on the board and hear your views and discussions.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that's hopefully answered the question about what's involved. So the meetings are spread during the year. I mean, they tend to be at our office in Birmingham, the National Resource Centre. Sometimes at ABDO College down in Kent. Sometimes we have virtual meetings as well, but there is going to be a degree of travel involved, and also, as you said, Brenda, time spent reading the papers. But I think if you have a supportive employer, then certainly you've been able to make it work. And I would hope that employers would recognise the value of having a member of staff who is on the board and has insight into the role that ABDO plays and the role that ABDO plays in benefiting DOs. So, I mean, is there anything you would add to that, Brenda? Any other thoughts on what being involved actually means day to day?
Yeah. Day to day, it gives you a better understanding of what you do. I think you understand the politics and behind the scenes more of what all ABDO do. We all know that ABDO is supportive and promotive of dispensing opticians, but I don't think you realise the enormity of what they do behind the scenes until you're actually there. There's even a little thing that the big iceberg underneath is huge compared to what we see as a member. And without all that, we wouldn't have the progression and the successes that we've had up till now. So for me, it's all been positive. It's been really, really good, I feel, and I've enjoyed it. And combining it for work too, I think my employers appreciate that you're doing more than the 9 to 5, you're involved in your profession and you're serious about it. And you really just want to provide gold standard care, and you've got ABDO there to support you in every way.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda. So that takes us on quite nicely to the next question, which is for Kevin. And really just to give a sense to people of what are the things that we're working on at the moment? What are our current priorities?
Yeah, and thanks, Alistair. Yeah, I think that in no particular order, but when we look at the huge opportunities are with these increasing apprenticeship schemes out there, both for the profession and of course for employers as well, then changing what we currently have with the ABDO diploma to an apprenticeship is going to be something that can't happen fast enough, in my view. I think that we know there still is a shortage out there with many practices out there without a qualified member of staff outside of the consulting room. So that's a really high priority to get everything in place so that can start as soon as possible. Some of you may well have been to the clinical conference last October at the NRC, and within that conference, which was entitled really Myopia Management, was introduced a pediatric eye care certificate, professional certificate, which the Research and Clinical Committee has been working on for probably the last year and a half. That's due to be launched very, very soon. We had a lot of interest at that the conference on myopia management, and I think to have that additional qualification skill set at this time when pediatrics, in particular myopia management, not just myopia management, is being highlighted, and at the moment nobody seems to be, dare I say it, and controversially say, owning that particular area. So that needs to be owned, or at least led by DOs in practice. So let's get those qualifications up to that standard. The member engagement project is ongoing. You may well have taken part in the survey recently. So that the results of that will come before the board. Again, normal procedure for board for such high-level surveys to come to the board, and then to look at the specific strategy and direction that we take after having heard back from the membership. That's high on the priority list. Talking about the clinical conference last year, there's another clinical conference this year with, again, pediatrics, myopia management, plus acute eye care for DOs. Within that, what we called the hybrid clinical conference. So it will start online throughout that, and then person to person in Birmingham over, I say over 2 days. There'll be repeated days again like there were last year, so you'll only need to attend one of those 2 days, but there will be this hybrid webinars and conferences before that takes place. And I think that's just about where we are with priorities. But the one thing about the board is, and the one thing about Alistair is, who knows what's around the corner, and those priorities generally are added to. They don't change, but we add a new priority to that longish list of priorities, possibly every 3 or 4 months. So yeah, it never ends, that list, as it shouldn't do.
Yeah, I mean, there is some structure to it in that we have our sort of 5-year strategic plan, but then each year we'll publish an annual plan which sets out our priorities for the year ahead. So I think the ones you've mentioned are the things that we're focused on this year, and if I think about the agenda for the board meeting we have next week, so the board will get an update on where we are with the apprenticeship project, the different strands of work that are going on. But probably the main item is going to be a real focus on the membership engagement project. So we have the consultants who've been carrying out the research coming along to the board meeting and presenting the findings, and giving the board a chance to then feed into the discussion about what we take from those findings and what we do next. How do we translate that knowledge into action for the benefit of members? Yeah, so that's a really good summary of current priorities. I mean, is there anything you would add, Brenda, from your perspective?
I think it would be really good to have the same system up in Scotland as it's going to be in England, with the new project, how you're going to be the skill set. In Scotland at the moment, they had the GCU who did the dispensing optician course, and it's been put on hold just now until they do the new project similar to England. But we have a shortage of dispensing opticians there, and I think it could only be beneficial to everybody. And you're learning while you work, learn while you learn. I think that would be a good system to do.
Yeah, so I suppose that's the kind of input the board members can have in terms of shaping our priorities and making sure that we're thinking about the whole of the UK and not just England. I mean, that's a good example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have the regional leads we feed into us for all the different areas, but it would be really good to have somebody from all the nations on the board to get all the diversity from that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brenda and Kevin. I thought what I could do now before we get into questions from all of you is just do a quick summary of what the election process looks like, so that you have that in mind. So before I do that, I mean, if you do have questions, I know we've had a couple already, but please feel free to put those in the chat, and then we'll come on to those. In terms of the process and the timeline, so nominations open very soon, so on the 1st of May, and it's open to all current qualified members of ABDO to put themselves forward. All you need to do is have your nomination supported by 6 other qualified members, and you also need to provide a short submission, 250 words, just setting out what experience you would bring to the role, and also what your aspirations are for ABDO. So that's quite straightforward, really. And you've got until the 14th of June. That's when nominations close. If we have more than 5 people who are putting themselves forward, we'll then move to elections, and we'll send out ballot papers in mid-July, and voting goes on throughout the rest of July and August. And then by early September, we'll be in a position to inform people whether they've been successful or not, and then we'll announce that publicly. And then following on from that, the people who are successful, their first board meeting will be the one that we're having in November. And there's a 3-year term on the board, but then there's the option of then standing again for another 3 years. So you can be a board member for 6 years in total. So that's a quick summary of the process. And I think this has come up already in the comments made by Kevin and Brenda, but we really do want to encourage nominations from a diverse range of members, including groups who might be underrepresented at the moment. So that's something we've emphasised in all our communications connected with the election process, and a wide range of experience as well. I think the different perspectives around the board table are invaluable, really. So people who work in practice, whether that's in a multiple practice or an independent, people from industry or academia, I think would all bring really valuable perspectives. And I think I mean, Brenda's touched on this as well, but worth just emphasising that unfortunately it's not a paid role. This is something that we're asking people to do for the benefit of ABDO and the profession. But you're not going to be out of pocket, because we do cover expenses for travelling to meetings that you need to go to. So that's really you know, a summary of what's involved. I'll turn now to the questions. Just looking at the chat now. First one was asking why we've got 5 vacancies. You know, I did say that that was more than normal. So, I mean, we do have 2 board members who are entitled to stand for re-election, so to do another 3-year term. The other 3 vacancies have arisen, you know, because 3 of our current board had to stand down during the course of their term. So for a variety of personal reasons, including ill health, we've lost 3 of our board members, unfortunately. So that's why we're in this rather unusual position. But as I say, it does mean that you know, there's a higher than normal chance of actually being successful if you do put yourself forward. So yeah, the next question, are we looking for a combination of DOs, CLOs and optoms? Well, I mean, certainly, as I've said, we're looking for sort of qualified members, but would you like to pick that up, Kevin?
Yeah, I think for me it's all about what people can bring to this board, and as long as you're an ABDO member, yeah, it's nice to have an absolute mix of people and clinical background. So and we've had optometry ABDO members on the board before. We've always had contact lens opticians on the board before. So yeah, I think that you can see from the way I talk, it's all about that eclectic mix. It's all about having really as much of the kind of experiences that our members have in the workplace that they present. So yeah, I see benefits from everybody and anybody as long as they're members. Not a problem.
Yeah, so certainly you know, we do have at the moment dispensing opticians and contact lens opticians. We don't have any optometrists at the moment, but if someone is a qualified dispensing optician who's gone on to be an optometrist and is still an ABDO member, then you know, there'd be no reason why they couldn't put themselves forward. And then you know, denominations need to be supported by registered members only. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what's meant by registered members. I mean, certainly current ABDO members, whether they need to be registered with the GOC, if that's what the question is driving at. I think the requirement is that they are current ABDO members. So yes, sorry, there's clarification there. So that's really the requirement. Yeah, current ABDO members and also qualified members, just to be clear on that again. Okay, so yeah, the next question which has popped up there is how do people go about applying? So well, maybe I can cover this. We'll be sending out an election notice which you know, summarizes all the information that we've covered tonight, and also it will have the link to the nomination form. So that nomination form be on the website, but there'll be a link to it from the election notice. And to make it even easier, what we thought we would do is email everyone who's joined the webinar tonight, include a link to the recording of the video, but also include the link to the nomination form. So all you need to do is just follow that link when you get the email, and you know, everything will be there for you. Yeah, those are the questions we've been asked so far. Just give a moment in case anyone has any further questions they want to answer. But while we're just giving that final opportunity, is there anything you'd like to add before we close? So I'll go to you, Brenda, first. Anything else that you'd like to mention to people?
A while ago, the first time I applied for the board, everything had to be written for the person who's nominating you, and it had to all be sent. And now it's all done digitally, so it's so much easier now. But you do need to have their ABDO number as well when you're putting all the nominations through, just to remember to do that. but
Yeah.
looking forward to having new people on the board and exciting times. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda. So, and just, I mean, Kevin touched on this earlier. So Kevin will become the president at our next meeting next week, in fact, isn't it? And then at that point, Brenda, you'll become the vice president. And the way it works is that then in 2 years' time, you'll replace Kevin as president. So, so that's just for people who don't know. And actually, I think I can see now a couple of other questions. So, is there any restriction as to who can nominate people? So can there be ABDO staff? Good question. Our policy there is that we ask ABDO staff not to get involved in nominating people for the election. I think it's best if, as staff, we, are impartial and, are not linked to any particular candidates. So I think with the exception of ABDO staff, any current qualified member can sign the nomination form. So I think that gives you still quite a big pool to work from, hopefully. And then final question here is, will there be included in the notice details of what's needed in the 250-word application? It's not really very prescriptive at all, actually. So I think I summarise what the notice says. It's really just to, I mean, I suggested you might want to give, set out the experience that is going to be relevant to the role, but also, what your ambition is for the organisation. What are your aspirations? Why are you looking to join the board? But beyond that, I think it's really, what would you like other members who are going to be casting their ballot, what would you like them to know about you, and how would you encourage them to give you their support? So beyond that, it's really down to you. It's very much not a sort of lengthy application form where you have to meet lots of different requirements. We're a membership organisation. This is about giving all the members a chance to get more involved. Okay, so no more questions for now. So perhaps I'll just go to you, Kevin, for your final thoughts.
Yeah, just to reiterate that question that's just come up last, the answer sadly is no. A student member, it has to be a full member, or I think a full reduced member, but certainly at this stage not a student member that you can be nominated by. So
yeah,
just
someone who's qualified. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is a good starting point for everyone who's already had an idea of looking at the potential to become a board member. I hope what we've done is to really give you a critical view on how the board is, how the board works. It really is. You will get as much out of it as you put into it, but the board as a totality will get as much out of you as we can. That's the way it works. No huge amounts of pressure. You have to do this, you have to do that. Everything is very much, especially initially if you're new to a board, is to build up your confidence, to see how things work, start to chip in, start to bring thoughts to the board, and really start to work as one of the board, because the board does work as a board. It's not there for individuals to stand in any way head and shoulders above anybody else. It's there to make collective decisions and come to collective decisions. So but I'm really glad to see so many people coming along to listen to this. Yeah, when you do decide to write your 250 words, that is your opportunity to sell yourself and your ideas. Should I say a little bit of advice? It's up to you. I generally don't get involved too much with social media. I think sometimes it can be a quite hurtful position to be trying to sell yourself. But I leave that decision to yourselves. I think doing what you're doing today plus is great, and I really thank everybody for turning up tonight, Alistair.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kevin. And sorry, I've just included my email address in the chat as well. So if anyone has any thoughts afterwards, any further questions, please just drop me a line, and be very happy to respond. Yeah, I think we'll bring it to a close there. But before we do, I mean, I would just like to echo what Brenda said at the start. I think you summed it up really well. You know, don't sit on the fence. You know, don't be wavering about whether to put your hat in the ring. I think, what did you say, Brenda?
Go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
Go for
Okay.
it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I really hope that was useful. Yeah, look forward to as many of you as possible standing for election.
Yep.
So thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thank you
you.
for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.